South Africa, a nation celebrated for its diverse culture, breathtaking landscapes, and historical journey to democracy, is at a crossroads. Beneath the surface of its vibrant cities and rural tranquility lies a burgeoning financial crisis threatening the stability of its economy and the welfare of millions. While headlines often focus on political scandals, energy crises, and unemployment rates, the true depth of the financial turmoil remains obscured from the public eye. To understand this crisis, one must examine its roots, the interconnected systemic failures, and the ripple effects it has on the nation and the broader region. South Africa's economy is deeply shaped by its history of apartheid, during which racial segregation created vast economic disparities. Despite the end of apartheid in 1994, the effects persist. Wealth remains concentrated in the hands of a small elite, while millions continue to live in poverty. Access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities remains unequal, exacerbating systemic vulnerabilities. In the post-apartheid era, corruption has plagued South Africa's governance. During the tenure of former President Jacob Zuma, corruption scandals, state capture, and the misappropriation of public funds severely damaged state-owned enterprises, SOEs, like Eskom, the national electricity provider, and South African Airways, SAA. Billions were siphoned off through fraudulent contracts and kickbacks, leaving SOEs financially crippled. South Africa's economy heavily relies on commodity exports such as gold, platinum, and coal. Fluctuations in global demand and commodity prices have created cycles of boom and bust. When prices drop, export revenues decline, leading to trade imbalances and a weakened currency. State-owned enterprises, the heart of the financial strain Eskom, the energy crisis Eskom, responsible for 95% of South Africa's electricity, epitomizes the country's financial woes. Years of corruption, mismanagement, and underinvestment in infrastructure have left the utility company on the brink of collapse. Rolling blackouts, or load shedding, have become a daily occurrence, crippling businesses and deterring foreign investment. Eskom's debt stands at over $400 billion, approximately $20 billion, a burden that the government guarantees, placing immense strain on public finances. Efforts to reform the utility have been slow and met with resistance from unions and entrenched interests. SAA and other failing SOE, South African Airways, once a symbol of national pride, has suffered from decades of mismanagement. Despite repeated bailouts, the airline has been unable to achieve financial stability. Other SOEs, including Transnet, the freight rail company, and Denel, a defense contractor, face similar challenges. Combined, these enterprises account for a significant portion of public debt. South Africa's national debt has ballooned to over $4.7 trillion, approximately $240 billion, nearly 70% of its GDP. This rising debt burden has led to higher borrowing costs, as international investors demand greater returns to compensate for increased risks. Chronic budget deficits exacerbate the problem. The government spends more than it earns, with much of the expenditure going toward public sector wages and SOE bailouts. Despite efforts to contain spending, political pressures and social demands make austerity measures difficult to implement. Credit rating agencies, including Moody's, Fitch, and S&P, have downgraded South Africa's sovereign credit rating to junk status. This makes borrowing more expensive and deters foreign investment, creating a vicious cycle of debt and underperformance. Unemployment in South Africa is among the highest in the world, officially standing at over 32%. Among young people, the rate exceeds 60%, a ticking time bomb for social unrest. A lack of job opportunities not only stifles economic growth, but also fuels crime and inequality. The labor market is hampered by structural barriers, including inadequate education and training systems, rigid labor laws, and geographic disparities. Many rural areas remain disconnected from economic hubs, leaving millions unable to access jobs. The COVID-19 pandemic dealt a devastating blow to an already fragile economy. Lockdowns disrupted businesses, reduced tax revenues, and forced the government to increase spending on healthcare and social relief programs. While other nations are recovering, South Africa's growth remains sluggish, projected at less than 2% annually. South Africa's informal economy is vast, encompassing millions of people who operate outside formal financial systems. While this sector provides livelihoods for many, it also means lost tax revenue and limited regulatory oversight. Corruption, smuggling, and illicit trade flourish in this environment, further weakening the state's financial position. Corruption continues to undermine South Africa's financial recovery. The Zondo Commission, established to investigate state capture during the Zuma era, revealed extensive graft at all levels of government. While some progress has been made in holding individuals accountable, systemic corruption persists, particularly at municipal levels. Poor service delivery in water, sanitation, and waste management fuels public discontent. The ruling African National Congress, ANC, once synonymous with the liberation struggle, has seen its popularity wane due to corruption scandals and poor governance. Infighting within the party hampers decision-making, leaving critical reforms in limbo. Opposition parties like the Democratic Alliance, DA, and the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, capitalize on public frustration. However, their divergent ideologies, neoliberalism versus radical socialism, highlight South Africa's polarized political landscape. South Africa remains one of the most unequal countries in the world. The Gini coefficient, a measure of income inequality, is alarmingly high. Wealth is concentrated in urban centers like Johannesburg and Cape Town, while rural areas, particularly in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, languish in poverty. High unemployment and inequality contribute to rising crime rates. Violent protests, often triggered by poor service delivery, have become a common expression of frustration. The July 2021 riots, sparked by Zuma's imprisonment, exposed the fragility of social cohesion. Despite these challenges, South Africa possesses significant strengths, natural resources. South Africa's mineral wealth remains a cornerstone of its economy. Renewed global demand for commodities could provide a lifeline. Resilient civil society, activist groups, and watchdog organizations play a crucial role in holding the government accountable. Potential for reform. President Cyril Ramaphosa has pledged to root out corruption and implement structural reforms. While progress has been slow, there are signs of improvement, such as increased prosecutions for corruption and plans to unbundle Eskom. To address its financial crisis, South Africa must take bold steps. Reform SOEs, privatization or partial privatization could improve efficiency and reduce financial burdens. Combat corruption. Strengthening institutions like the National Prosecuting Authority, NPA, is essential to restoring public trust. Stimulate job creation. Investments in infrastructure and education could unlock economic potential and reduce unemployment. Diversify the economy. Reducing reliance on commodities by developing sectors like technology and tourism would enhance resilience. Fiscal discipline. Reducing wasteful expenditure and managing debt effectively is crucial for regaining investor confidence. South Africa's financial crisis is a complex web of historical inequities, systemic failures, and contemporary challenges. While the road to recovery is steep, the nation's resilience and potential for reform offer hope. By addressing corruption, reforming state institutions, and empowering its citizens, South Africa can chart a path towards sustainable growth and equity, reclaiming its place as a beacon of hope on the African continent. The hidden crisis in South Africa's finances, though daunting, is not insurmountable. With strong leadership and collective effort, the country can rise above its challenges and build a brighter future for all its people.